Good morning, Rabotai. We are continuing the halachot of Eruvin, and we discussed the complexities of an Eruv carrying in a street from a private domain to a public domain. And I just wanted to add on one interesting historical teshuvah that Rabbi Yitzchak ibn Dinan wrote. Rabbi Yitzchak ibn Dinan was the uncle of Rabbi Shlomo ibn Dinan, Amelech Shlomo, the chief rabbi of Morocco, and he wrote a sefer called Yitzchak Reach. If you remember, I spoke that he was the Rav who went together with Rabbi Shlomo ibn Dinan to visit Eretz Yisrael, and they came back. He was his uncle, he was his teacher, and he writes in Shelot Teshuvot Yitzchak Reach an issue that they had in the city of Fez, that they wanted to go out to the well called Ein Tuta, and they would go there and they would go want to draw water. And based on, if you remember some of the halachot that we said beforehand, he delineates two isurei de oraita that would happen when people would go there. Number one, he says, although it's a desert and there aren't 600,000 people going there, he says, but the Shulchan Aruch writes that as long as it's a street that's wide, 16 amot wide, which is around 20 feet wide, then one cannot carry. And that's considered a public domain. And although there is other opinions, but he says, Maran, the Shulchan Aruch went like the first opinion. So we see that he was quite stringent. And he said, number two, people are carrying arba amot. People are carrying, when they're there, they're carrying 4 amot birshut rabim. And therefore, he doesn't see any way why one would be able to carry in such a domain. But there is a further very interesting teshuvah from Rabbi Yaakov ben Sur. This is Mishpat Ustaka Yaakov, one of the greatest of the Moroccan Acharonim. And he writes, regarding a certain minhag that the Jews had, he calls it in Dana, that their minhag on Shabbat was never to leave their house at all, and for sure not to carry. So they were so machmir, they would never leave their house. They wouldn't leave there. I don't know how they went to Bet Knesset, and all of a sudden somebody told them they're allowed, and they're allowed to even carry. And Rabbi Yaakov ben Sur says that although the Rabbanim that told them they're allowed to carry because assumingly there was an Eruv, but if they had such a minhag, obviously it was done based on Chachamim that knew that there was problems in potentially carrying. And this brings us to our new subject, which is Eruvin has 3 components. We have Eruv of carrying, that's called Eruv Mechitzot. Then we have Eruv Chatzerot. And then it's also called Eruv Tchumin. But the second category is Eruv Chatzerot, which means that even if somebody is in a walled city, there's another type of Eruv that has to be done in order to be able to carry, which is called joining the different Chatzerot together. And Chachamim did this as, once again, a mishmeret, a guard, that if we don't join all the houses together in one common basket, we'll call it, then what happens is people are going to think they could also carry to Reshut Rabim. In other words, if we're able to carry from here to there and we have no connection to each other, so I could also connect there. But if you have different houses in a courtyard and they all join together and somebody say, oh, it's because we have a connection to each other we're allowed to carry, and we're not allowed to carry outside. This was a takana already from the time of Shlomo HaMelech, that it's called Eruv Chatzerot. And therefore, these Eruvim of Eruv Chatzerot were viciously guarded throughout the generations. We'll see how, when we live amongst goyim or big cities, how do we join all houses together? That'll be a different subject. But Rabbi Yaakov ben Sur starts to discuss it and talks about how these people didn't find a proper solution for Eruv Chatzerot, and therefore they opted not to carry at all. And he says that if that was their minhag, and even though it takes away from Oneg Shabbat, but he says they obviously had their reason why, and he's going to discuss. We'll have to discuss at length how this Eruv Chatzerot works. So those are 2 fascinating insights on the city of Fez. What happened with their Eruv. Chazaku Baruch.